Toronto rap vet legend Daneo is back on Worldwide Entertainment TV with a new project.
Big up,
Uh,
man.
so you're known for the single Dear Hip Hop, and hip hop just celebrated hip hop 50. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on celebrating 50 years of hip hop?
Well, I think it's amazing that the culture is 50 years old. And it was really a dope year for me because I had the opportunity to actually teach that to a lot of youth throughout Toronto. I've been
Yeah,
teaching hip hop songwriting since 2006 in and around the greater Toronto area. And last year was a special year, obviously, because of the anniversary and because I also started teaching in elementary school. So now I'm bringing hip hop songwriting workshops to kids as young as like kindergarten age. And basically, what I was able to teach last year is that hip hop is now a culture that is 50 years old. And I got
yeah,
to teach them the culture. And the culture obviously involves DJing as well as MCing, B-boys and B-girls, graffiti art, beatboxing, beat making, the language, the clothing. I talk about far more than just the four standard elements of hip hop. I believe there's eight, if not more. And a lot of the youth, they don't know that, right? Because it's a 50-year-old
gonna ask
culture.
you. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
just
so you have young kids who have no idea. When you ask them what hip hop is, I always find that interesting at the beginning of my workshops, and
yeah,
they'll all have different answers. Some will just say, it's music. Some think, oh, it's dance. And they're all correct answers, but obviously hip hop encompasses so many more things that there's like it encompasses so much more. It's a bigger scope that they understand that hip hop is when we come out of those workshops. So I'm proud, of course, to be a representative of the culture, a
yeah.
connoisseur of the culture, and obviously proud of its 50 years. And I hope I'm here for the next 50.
Okay. So while you're teaching the youth about hip hop and its history, do you find that they're interested to find out the history, where it came from, or they're just about the era now? 'Cause I know the record companies basically just push what is hot and they
Yeah,
don't
of
really
course.
go into things. So it's kind of training the youth not to think about that.
That's true. And that's why I think the workshops are important. And to answer your question, no, I found that they've been really interested in learning about the culture. It's eye-opening for the teachers as well.
Yeah,
Sometimes that's the most fascinating thing about it is you see the teachers raising eyebrows when they learn about its history and understanding where it came from and its roots, not just in music, of course, but like, I go as far back as talking about uh, the rhythm from African drumming. I talk about the oral tradition, which are speeches from Martin Luther King Jr. During the civil rights movement. I talk about Bob Marley's messages of peace, unity, and harmony, and how that's all the predecessor for hip hop. Hip hop came from funk and soul, reggae, rhythm and blues, and a variety of other music genres. But again, the culture itself is something that allowed us to express ourselves and speak out against racism, police brutality, poverty, drug culture, gang violence. These are some of the earliest records, like The Message, spoke on these types of things. So, hip hop, again, is so much more than a music genre. It's a culture, it's an art form, and it's a form of expression deeply rooted in Black culture. So, yeah, the kids are fascinated by it and they love it and they get so much more of an appreciation for it by the time the workshop is done. So they're no longer just thinking that hip hop is this thing that you might hear on the radio or online or whatever. It's obviously bigger than that.
okay. So who would you consider to be the top five greatest rappers of all time?
Oh, wow. Well, I have always listed Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap, and Rakim as my personal holy trinity of MCing. When I came up in the game, again, I got into hip hop as a 10-year-old, 10,
Yeah,
11, 12, those formative hip hop years of my life. Um, those were my top MCs, and I sort of formulated my style around their lyricism. So they will always remain in my top three. You asked for top five, and man, there might be a sort of rotating door on who I put in there because those three were such top influences for me. They'll never leave, but I would throw out names like Black Thought. I think Eminem is one of the greatest rappers ever. As much as I don't like dig all of his music, his bars are insane. Um, man, there's such a long list. Big Pun, God bless him and rest him in peace, please, because I find that so many times when we talk about artists, especially those who have left us,
Yeah,
um, a lot of respect goes the way of the Tupacs and the Biggies, and they deserve it. Big L deserves it, but I feel like Big Pun gets overlooked a little bit when it comes to the greatest
he
of all
does.
time.
He
And I
does.
consider his debut album, Capital Punishment, an absolute clinic in lyricism and one of
Yeah,
the absolute best hip hop albums ever made. So I want to shout him out and as
I
I
agree.
give that answer.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, man.
What are your thoughts on the current hip hop scene in Canada and worldwide?
You know, it's a hard question to answer because there's so many different ways to answer the question. If I'm going to answer your question speaking of just industry, like just music, just songs that are being released and being consumed by the public, um, I might say, I think there's a lot more room that should be made for hip hop artists in 2024, meaning there's a focus on a particular style and sound. That's always sort of been the thing, I think, over the past 20 years is that there is a commercial sound of hip hop that resonates with audiences outside of the culture, and that's fine. But when we talk about hip hop, we need to not forget the variety of different artists that exists out there. There isn't just one sound, one style, one artist. There are still the Nas's and the De La Souls and the Wu Tangs of the world who are still touring, who are still making new music, who are still very much part of the fabric of hip hop music that we shouldn't overlook. So, on one hand, if you look at it from an industry perspective, I think we need to open up more room on the radio, on the way in which we represent hip hop and the way we discuss it in podcasts, etc. But I think
So,
overall, if you look at the culture, from my perspective, it's blossoming because every day I see stuff online where there are popping and locking contests and b-boys and b-girls still doing their thing. There's still DJs on the ones and twos. There's still people beatboxing. You know what I mean? There's obviously MCs popping up all over the world. So the culture is strong. And I think we have to remember that when we say, what's the status of hip hop? What are we talking about? The culture or the music industry? And it's two different things.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
and that gets commented upon on the Vigilante album, which I'm sure we'll get to. But
well, that
but
was the
that's
next question. I was gonna ask
okay.
you, you're coming with some singles this year, and I see you have it different release dates instead of an EP, but then I see you say you're coming with a forthcoming album.
Yes, sir.
How did you come about to make that business decision?
Word. Well, first of all, dope background. I haven't seen a doper background yet
Hey,
in the history of podcasts and interviews. Dopest background ever. Vigilante, the brand new daneo album drops in May. And to answer your question, I thought it smart to really create some energy around the project, give it a good buzz, and give it its proper due before it drops. I think
yeah,
in the past, not that I've always really just thrown albums out there. I've always dropped singles first, but I thought it was really important to give singles their appropriate shine. For example, in February, obviously it was Black History Month. So I wanted to drop the single Cleanse My Soul featuring Master Ace and Century because that song focused on self-hatred in the Black community. And I called out people like Kanye West and the Killers of Tyree Nichols because in my mind, they're representatives of self-haters in the Black community. And I thought that was an important message. Like We, my new single with Blessed just dropped in March, and that's about social media and the way people misuse it and fake in front, pretend they're somebody they're not instead of focusing on the quality of their music. And there's these different messages that occur throughout Vigilante. Vigilante is my most important, I would say, most provocative album. I'm a vigilante because in character, as you see that character right behind you, that is my way of saying I'm looking to kill a lot of these negative issues in society. So the way we might troll people on social media,
yeah,
gun violence, anti-black racism, self-hatred, jealousy, having a lack of self-worth, a lot of these issues, mental health issues, these are all dealt with on the album. So before I dropped the album, I wanted to drop a single that gave proper due to each of these issues. Not the whole thing, obviously. You're gonna have to wait for the album for a lot of it, but each single deals with a different topic, a new unique perspective that I wanted to give some quality time to so that people could take it in, digest it, hopefully love it, and also, garner more anticipation for the release of the full-length project. That's why you were hit up with a bunch of the singles that a
that's it.
lot of people don't even know about yet, but so that you could get a taste for what's coming.
So, how did you choose your collaborators?
Mm. Yeah, man. Well, for this album, there was a couple of bucket list checkoffs that I wanted. Master Ace, I mentioned Big Daddy Kane and Cool G Rap earlier as two of my top MCs ever. Master Ace, I was introduced to him on the Symphony, that Marley Marl record that features Cool G Rap, Big Daddy Kane, Craig G, and Master Ace from
Yeah,
1988. I was 11 years old and I fell in love with the record. Like every MC was dope, the beat was dope. So I've been a fan for that long. And obviously, one of my bucket list, rappers to do a song with was Master Ace. So being able to connect with him was a blessing. And it was like, man, just like I said, dream come true to work with the legend and someone I'm a big fan of. And I've met a number of times and stuff. And just, I'm so glad that that was able to happen. Socrates, I want to shout him out because he's one of my favorite all time artists. And I don't mean Canadian artists and I don't mean hip hop artists. I mean artists. I think
yeah,
dude is
talented.
brilliantly talented.
Yeah,
His voice, his flow, his style, his singing, his rhyming, his production. He is multi-talented and a brethren. And it was just like all these years had passed. We had not done a record together. So both he and Master Ace were two, in my mind, bucket list artists to work with. And there's also artists on there who have been family. People like Nish and Corey Dees, who are members of the Mighty Monolith, my crew. Charisma, who produces half the album, that's Monolith. He's my crew. Century, God bless her. I've worked with her now on 5 joints. And as I told her when we first started working together, I said, I don't think I could do a record again without you. So she brings that soul to my music that I love. And everybody else on the album, I was hoping to get artists who hadn't appeared on a daneo album before that I
yeah,
have a lot of respect for. Shouts to Quake Matthews out of Halifax. Shouts to my boy Hart out of Calgary. Big up Decisive and Jay Schiltz, also from Toronto, who are also on the album. And yeah, man, it's just like a rounded out, you got MCs, you got singers, and a lot of artists I've worked with, a lot of artists I haven't worked with. So I just wanted to have a mix of like super talent that I appreciate who could bless the album, and they all did.
so are you gonna have any visuals coming out?
Yes, sir. Happy to tell you that we just this past weekend shot the music video for Like We featuring Blessed. Man, it's a big tune, and I'm looking forward to this video, especially because we tribute a lot of legends in this song, and we have legends who appear in the video. So that'll be a real cool look. There is another single and video scheduled for April. And of course, I plan on shooting more. So 2 videos are already in the can. So they are on the way, and God willing, more to come.
I wanted to ask you this, but you kind of answered the question. I was gonna ask, who would you love to collaborate with in your rapper, dead or alive? Or
Ooh, dead or alive.
yeah,
Wow. Well, yeah, I think you're right. In a way, I sort of did answer the question
yeah,
because if, man, it's kind of blowing my mind just the thought of it. If I could do a track with Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap, and Big Pun, since you said dead or alive,
yeah,
that would be the most insane record I could think of from a lyrical standpoint. And
yeah.
that will be my answer. Those are my
Yeah.
yeah, those are my choices.
So when the project drops, where could we find it?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, for everybody who's streaming, since this is the year 2024, it will be streaming everywhere. So whether you listen to music on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer, or otherwise, YouTube, the album will be there for you to stream as of the 10th of May. However, this album will be available for purchase on both vinyl and CD. And you can go to daneo.com. That's dan-e-o.com, just like it's spelled there. And or urbnet.com, which is the label that distributes my music, URBNET. Yeah, both vinyl and CD will be available. And in fact, pre-orders are up now. This is one of the first times I've ever said that. So this is almost pretty much a worldwide entertainment TV exclusive. Go to
Yeah.
daneo.com or urbnet.com and pre-order either the vinyl or the CD or both or the digital download now because it is available online for purchase.
Okay. I have one
Yes,
more
sir.
question because I know you're a wrestling fan. What's your thoughts on The Rock coming back for WrestleMania and WrestleMania itself?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been a minute since I've really followed the product and had any time or energy to watch wrestling, but Being a fan and somebody who's down with a lot of people in this industry, I do know about the storyline. Firstly, I think it's really dope of The Rock to be back because he's obviously a legend and an icon in the game, and wrestling fans worldwide have a lot of love and respect for him. The fact of the matter is he's now become a Hollywood superstar and one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. So him coming back to the WWE for WrestleMania or any other event for that matter is a huge look for the company. It's a huge look for the wrestling business, professional wrestling business in general, to know that, this is where he came from. This is where his roots are. His family, obviously, is a big wrestling family going back to his grandparents, his grandfather and father, cousins, you name it. And because that's part of the storyline and that this whole bloodline thing, it's representative of that. It's the history of his family that is
Yeah,
intrinsic to this storyline. So I love that that's part of it. I think it really helps put over the workers like Roman Reigns, who's obviously part of his family, but also the Cody Rhodes of the world, who's looks like he's primed to get the title at Mania.
yeah,
And for a star as big as The Rock to come in and essentially help put these guys over, it's big because he's going to push these guys to the next level of superstardom, I think, by being
yeah.
part of this whole storyline. And it looks like I don't know if he'll be wrestling twice, but I know that they're pushing the storyline so that there's a match Saturday and a follow up on Sunday.
Sunday.
I think the title match is Sunday and the tag match is Saturday. So, it's got an old school wrestling fan like me who doesn't really watch anymore wanting to check it out. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know any wrestling fan who wouldn't be intrigued by The Rock being involved in the program. So, yeah, I'll be looking for
So one more question concerning wrestling.
it.
How do you see it with Vince McMahon not behind the product no more, really, because of
Yeah.
his situation? Do you think the business is gonna be bigger or would it stagnate? Like, how would it be without a Vince McMahon?
Well, it's hard to tell, but I do know that obviously Vince McMahon is an older man now, man. And, it's 2024. So at the end of the day, when you let some of the younger people, take over the reins, whether it's Triple H, Stephanie, or I'm not sure who's behind, there's a lot of people who, work in the behind the scenes and stuff, but I know that, the family still is involved. Yeah, it's time for a younger voice, a younger view. I already noticed there's a couple of things like, them using the words professional wrestling. There were some rules
Yeah,
that Vince McMahon had. Like you can't even say wrestling and you can't say
yeah,
belt. You have to say title. And there was just sort of a certain vision that he had that I think is being molded and shaped now to sort of speak to a younger generation while also paying respect to the history of the game. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
yeah.
of course, say wrestling. Of course, call it belts and have some storylines in there that are maybe a little less corny. Even I mean, some of the things that got me out of wrestling as I got older and busier over the past several years was, just some of the I can't really believe in this storylines or things
Yeah,
that or the thing that they were wasting TV time with, as opposed to really strong work in the ring. So yeah, I see no problem in there being like a new leader at the helm, if you will. He's been around for decades. Obviously, it's time for someone else to take over and
yeah.
follow traditions while also coming up with new ones. And I think it seems like that's what they're doing.
So is there anything else you want the viewers to know about Daniel before we leave?
Yeah, well, for anybody who follows my acting career, if you have Amazon Prime, you can check out this movie called Tapped Out because it's there. I also happen to be in the documentary Drop the Needle, so I want to shout out everybody who's part of that. That's a documentary on Play to Record, this historic record store in Toronto. And if you have Disney Plus, you can check out the film World's Best, which is a hip hop musical, and I have a scene in that. And basically just shout out to you. I appreciate you and everybody who does things like this because it's the
Thanks.
podcast as well as the DJs and all the purveyors of hip hop out there that help artists like me get to spread the word about what it is I'm doing. Without you and people like you, far less people are going to know about the album, the singles, or
Yeah.
Daneo, the artist in general. So shouts to you. I appreciate you. Thank you, man.
Appreciate you for coming back, speaking with us as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.